رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum. We will inshallah continue with a supplication which occurred to me in Persian in the 17th word, and in my book it is page 226. It starts at 225, but last week we studied the first page and maybe half of the second page. So we will inshallah continue with the page 26. Again, supplication which occurred to me in Persian. This is the 17th word.
So the overall message was, so this author was troubled and he was trying to find a cure for his troubles, and he was receiving the answer as, are your ills not sufficient as cure for you? As if you should be searching for a cure for your troubles within the trouble itself, or the trouble itself is a cure for you. This is why it is given to you. Sure. Then the part that we read was, he was looking to six aspects meaning the past, to the future, the present time, to the beginning of my personal life existence, like the earth, to the end of my life, which was the top. He was describing as beginning of my end of my life, the fruit of my life. Then at the front he was seeing grave, at the back he was seeing his father's grave, so on and so forth. So he was trying to, in a sense, find a solution for his own problem with all possible sources that are candidates out there. We read the first three as far as I remember. The first one was to the past time that he looked, and with his neglectful eyes he initially saw it as a huge grave which all his relatives or friends are buried in, but belief was showing this to be in a different way, as a meeting place, a gathering of friends. And he was looking to the future, and in there he saw it as his own grave. So this is his future, but the belief was showing it to be a not as a grave, but as a meeting place, or the most merciful palace of bliss, which is prepared for me. Then he looked at the present time. With the eye of neglect, he saw the present time as a coffin, as a bier, in which he is just being moved to somewhere, but he is kind of trapped inside this coffin. But belief was showing it to be a place of trade and guest house. This is what, as far as I remember, this is where he stopped. I might be wrong though. Then he's going to talk about the looking to the top, raising my head and look at the top of the tree of my life, but I saw that its single fruit was my corpse, so on and so forth.
Do you want to continue with the
reading?
Yeah, reading.
Thus I could find no cure from this aspect either, so I raised my head and looked at the top of the tree of my life, but I saw that its single fruit was my corpse. It was looking down on me from the treetop. Belief shows the tree's fruit to be not the corpse, but the worn-out home of my spirit, which will manifest eternal life, and is destined for everlasting happiness, from which it has departed in order to travel among the stars. So, there's a question that I have in here, but before the question, the first thing that I understand here, I'm going to share. So, with the eye of neglect, if I look at my life, at the end of my life, the only thing that remains is my corpse. Because all my joys and everything is just left behind. I don't have them at the end of my life. Right before, actually, the only thing that they will put into my grave is my corpse. Somebody might have thought about leaving a legacy behind, but just this legacy I'm not sure if it's going to help me at all. Because even now, at an old age, if I'm not enjoying the life or anything, whatever I left behind, I don't know, it doesn't give me this sort of a satisfaction because I'm not going to benefit from it anyways. He says that its belief shows that the tree's fruit, not the corpse, but the worn-out home of my spirit, which will manifest eternal life and is destined for everlasting happiness, for which it has departed in order to travel among the stars. This part I'm not clear what he is saying, so now you can take it.
Well, I guess we can keep the question in mind and read.
Okay.
And then when we go back and discuss, we can read the question. Probably he knows where to start.
Okay. Despairing of that aspect too, I lowered my head. I looked and saw that the dust of my bones underfoot had mixed with the dust of my first creation. It afforded no cure, but added further pain to my ills. Belief shows the dust to be the door leading to mercy, and a curtain before the halls of paradise.
Like, even though, like, again, he talks about 6 different aspects, it seems like he's always revolving around the same point. It always comes to like one single point that is the fact that man is transient and there is such thing called death that we experience.
Yes.
So, like, I guess it sounds like he's talking about different things, but it seems like he's not.
At the end, it always ends up with corpse and death.
Yeah.
Because the problem is I am dying and I am looking for a cure, but anything that I hold as a cure is also dying. So the fundamental problem is transience. Nothing is permanent, but I am in need of permanence. So yes, in a sense, the problem is death, but the problem is from my own death, my own transience. And I'm hoping that I can find a cure, but whatever I grasp just doesn't work. They are as bad as I am. They're in as bad condition as I am.
Yeah, like, no matter where you turn, there's no solution to this. As far as this life is concerned, like, you always come to the same conclusion that, like, you have no solution for your own stopping, for your own, like, yourself from dying. That's really the bottom line.
I turned away from that too and looked behind me, where I saw a transient world without foundation, revolving and departing in the valleys of nothingness and the darkness of non-existence. It was no salve for my ills, it rather added the poison of horror and fright. Belief shows the world revolving in darkness to consist of missives of the eternally besought one, and pages of divine inscriptions, which, having completed their duties and expressed their meanings, have left their results in existence in their place. Since I could see no good in that either, I switched my gaze to before me. I saw that the door of the grave stood open at the end of my road. The highway leading to eternity beyond it struck my gaze from afar. Since belief shows the door of the grave to open unto the world of light and the road to lead to eternal happiness, it was both a salve for my ills and a cure. These were the 6 aspects. Then he is going to start talking about free will. Thus, rather than receiving consolation and a feeling of familiarity, I felt only horror and fear at these 6 aspects. And apart from the faculty of will, I had nothing in my hand with which to withstand them and act in the face of them. Belief gives a document for relying on an infinite power in place of the power of choice, which is like the smallest indivisible particle. Indeed, belief itself is a document. But the human weapon called the faculty of will both lacked power and its range is short, and it is inaccurate. It cannot create, and apart from acquiring, can do nothing. Belief causes the faculty of will to be employed in God's name, and makes it sufficient before everything it may face. Like when a soldier employs his insignificant strength on account of the state, he can perform deeds thousands of times greater than his own strength. It can neither penetrate the past nor discern the future, and in regard to my hopes and fears concerning these, was of no benefit. Belief takes its reins from the head of the animal body and hands them over to the heart and the spirit, and may therefore penetrate the past and the future, for the sphere of life of the heart and spirit is broad. So let's
maybe two more paragraphs, like one sentence and the next paragraph, and we can stop at the.
The arena of the faculty of will is brief, present time, and the passing present instant. Thus, despite all my deeds and weakness, want and poverty, and my wretched state induced by the horrors and terrors arising from the six aspects, clearly written on the page of my being by the pen of power, and included in my nature, were desires stretching to eternity and hopes spreading through eternity.
Maybe we should start with your question, which is also the first paragraph that we read, and then continue. What was your question?
So he was saying that belief shows the tree's fruit to be not the corpse, but the worn-out home of my spirit, which will manifest eternal life and is destined for everlasting happiness, from which it has departed, in order to travel among the stars. What does he mean by saying that once I die, my soul is going to travel in the stars?
Different options come to my mind. One is he's just trying to be poetic. From one aspect, stars always represent, I get, greatness and maybe peace, being in peace. So it does make sense if you take it that way. But I guess he meant more, maybe. So is the first part clear? Let's discuss the first part first. So it says, without belief, he looks at the purpose of his life, the end goal, and he sees death. But with belief, he sees that the real purpose is reaching, or the real end goal of this life is reaching to eternal life. And your body, which will die eventually, is kind of a guest house for your spirit that will pass through the eternal life. Is that what he's saying?
I'm trying to understand it from the Turkish, because the English translation, I couldn't make too much sense of the English translation.
Any other ideas about this paragraph, maybe from our online participants?
Maybe it's not a comment on that specific paragraph, but it's a generic comment. So, if I can break down this chapter for myself, it comes down to a couple things, at least for me, the way that I understand. So, like here, in the very first paragraph, "O my sustainer, heedlessly, not trusting in you, but in my own power and will." That's how he starts the chapter. So, this chapter talks about death, and as an answer to it, maybe free will. But at the same time, there are the kind of keywords like heedlessness, trusting in God. So we already talked about that. We already talked about, and everything, every experience that he goes through, like when he's in search of, like, looking for some sort of solution, he always, as an answer, he always comes like that. No answer, then belief becomes an answer. So there, I think, again, it's a generic comment. There needs to be something more that looks to the, like, meaning aspect of this life. If you think, like, if you within heedlessness, if you look at the life itself, no matter how much you really enjoy, like, in the sense that, like, you taste every single pleasure that you want to taste in this life, when you think about the transience of it and your own death, everything, as far as I am concerned, or how I feel, everything really, like, goes into, like, complete darkness, because everything becomes so meaningless. Even if, let's say, you are the king of the world, you cannot change the fact that one day you are gonna die, and you cannot stop that. So when you bring the death into the equation, then you cannot really speak of any kind of meaning at all from your own life. For example, like, you guys doing research in one of the best university. By the way, you guys in the top 10 according to the higher education ranking.
Thank you for reminding.
So if you think about it from outside, like, you work for a very successful institution, and there are a lot of people wants to be maybe in your position. But one day you're gonna die. No matter how successful you are, or no matter how many articles you publish in the most respected journals. So, like, stop for a second and think about that. Like, does it really make any sense to you at all? Or, like, there is this, like, feeling inside you that, like, you say, ouch. Like, do you say that? So,
Yeah, and the record, so.
Maybe you should start from Yusuf. He's
that was,
closer to that.
No, that was a question to both of you, including myself. And Amin is working the most, I guess,
prestigious.
Not prestigious, but it is the largest car manufacturer, even though they are not the best. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there needs to be some sort of relationship between meaninglessness and heedlessness, and meaning and belief. So belief, almost like by the definition, should bring that kind of dimension into your life that will make your life more meaningful. So maybe when we try to understand what he's saying in that specific paragraph, maybe we should think of that from that aspect. Because, like, every time he says the belief shows that, like, how does it really show? Belief, I mean, it kind of changes the your take of the event.
Just as a reminder, this chapter, the 17th verse, is really about the death, the fact that everything is dying or going away. Even, I guess we can say that everything is taken away from us. That was the crux of the 17th verse. Am I right? And he was questioning that. And now he says, when I look at my life, I cannot make sense of it. Because for a moment, everything is very attractive. I enjoy a lot. But for the next moment, with the next coming moment, everything goes away. So in search for consolation and a feeling of familiarity with the life, he looks around different aspects of his life. Maybe answer is hidden in his past, maybe in his future. Maybe it's with the other people who would come after, he will come after him. Like maybe it's not his past, but the previous people who lived before him. And wherever he looked, he sees the same problem, death waiting for him. And with belief, as you were saying, I guess we should discuss what it means with belief. But with belief, he said, I don't see death anymore, or at least he does not perceive that as before, but it becomes a messenger for an eternal, maybe more enjoyable life. And I guess with your question, maybe the answer is related with chaotic nature of this world that we live in. Because when we think about the earth or the world that we live, I guess the most apparent or clear feature of the life is being chaotic. We don't easily find a source of familiarity in life. The feeling of familiarity is not always there. But when we look at the stars, when we look at the heavens, the skies above, I guess he was also saying similar thing in previous chapter when he was talking about the shooting stars. But there we see an order. Everything happens with a clear order. We don't see much of conflict there. So maybe he's trying to put with this paragraph when he says, with belief, I realize that my soul will go to the stars. Maybe he's making the contrast between chaotic life that we observe or experience on this earth and orderly and familiar life that we observe and perceive the experience among stars. Because at the end, this is our goal. Right? When we talk about the eternal life, it's not like any eternal life. We don't want to live, for instance, forever on this earth. Of course, it would be better than probably dying, but still, it's not the thing that will please our heart. We're also looking for a life that we can feel the familiarity, tranquility. We also want this. And I guess he's also saying when he gives up with all these different aspects, he says, thus rather than receiving consolation and a feeling of familiarity. I guess this is what he was looking for from the beginning. Consolation, being in peace, like being able to taking it easy instead of being in constant conflict with everything. And I guess anything which reminds us this consolation, it's a good target to reach, like stars.
If you would like to say anything specific about those other aspects, we can talk about them. Otherwise, we can start talking about the free will.
He's saying, wherever I look, I see death. Like, it doesn't matter where I look. Wherever I look at death. But when I put my belief glasses, thing changes. So maybe we can discuss about this putting on belief glasses, what it really means.
can you really talk about meaning at all, like without belief? Is it really possible? Or like what does it make something meaningful for us? Like, for example, like being more specific, you wake up in the morning, you go to work, you do whatever you have to do, and at the end of the day, you have this full, like, fulfillment that, yes, this day was a really, like, meaningful day and it was worth to live.
You seriously have problems with your work, don't you?
And I do, but like, in general. Even when I don't go to work, I don't remember many days say that, yeah, this day was worth to live.
But if we take your first question serious, when you were asking, can you make sense of anything without belief, it also suggests that sometimes when you put on your belief glasses, you can make sense of the world, life. So there must be at least some examples, experiences that you had, which you would call as meaningful. So would you share with us with these specific special moments?
That I must have an experience that made my life more meaningful?
Yes, like the experiences or moments that you said, okay, now I'm looking life through the glasses of belief, and it really makes sense.
Also, I want to add another question. What do you mean by meaningful?
Could you repeat the question, please?
What do you mean by meaning?
Yes, Osman got it.
That's what I'm trying to actually like discuss in a way with you to see if you are on the same page with the meaning of
Meaning?
No, definition of meaning. But instead of like, I don't know if I have any kind of experience that I can give you a specific example, but I rather like to discuss more in generic terms and can give you again like generic description. Like, to me, something is meaningful if it is not conflicting with any like inner like senses. Like, I don't want to name them. Like any inner senses that makes me like as a human being. If I'm not conflicted with those qualities, then I would call it that is something meaningful. Make sense?
Something that satisfies you totally.
Yeah, like it, yeah, doesn't have any sort of conflict with anything. Mind, heart, like emotions, like conscience.
Can we say something would be meaningful when that resonates within us? Are we on the same page? If I define meaning like that?
Yeah, I guess it's another way of like saying it.
Okay.
So when I look at that, for example, I don't see that like, because that is the illness actually that we are discussing. It just doesn't fit my nature because I want my existence to continue. I don't want to die. When I look at the mirror, I see more white hairs, and like that reminds me, okay, like you are not really like coming to the like middle age now, so you're not young anymore. So for example, you feel conflicted about the situation.
Comforted?
Not conflicted, conflicted.
Conflicted, okay.
So when he looks at the fact that, when he thinks about the fact that he's constantly changing and getting closer and closer to death, he doesn't find it meaningful, right?
If you look at, if you look at the situation heedlessly, then no meaning at all. Like,
but gray hairs are kind of easy example. How about a new well, how about a newborn baby?
Okay, like even the newborn baby, I don't want the 3 weeks old baby. I wanted to actually have the 1 week old baby because she looked more innocent. I wanted to somehow preserve that state, but you can't.
Okay, so the conflict is the fact that we want to preserve things, but they are fleeting us. Is that the conflict?
The conflict is that, let me just rephrase it. By nature, you want the perfection in all sense. Perfection means you want the life, but you want the life in its full potentials, and you want all those perfections and really continue all at the same time. That's in your nature, but like this life, everything goes against that. In this creation, everything, even though you have that desire, since we are subjected to change, in a sense, everything is going against that desire.
So the life itself becomes meaningless without belief, because no matter how much I try, there is always a contradiction between what I experience and what I desire. Can we summarize in those words?
Yes.
All right, that makes sense. Because the reason I wanna kind of do a back and forth so we can really have the common definition of the words, so we can develop our thoughts together. So, and I wanted to really understand, why is it really meaningful? Why is it really meaningless? Why the life cannot have any meaning in and of itself without belief? I guess that's the crux of the matter. And what you said thus far kind of explains, at least it's a good introduction to explaining why.
We still don't know, at least I don't know, how belief will change this. But at least I guess we are on the same page when it comes to what the problem is. And thank you for asking, actually, because I myself, some people would know it already, against using this meaning in such, the word meaning in such discussions. Because,
you're against it?
Yes, I am against it. Because saying that there is no meaning, like this sentence itself, doesn't make sense to me. Because the life is full of meanings, either you believe or not. I'm holding my phone, it means something to me. I'm talking to a microphone, it means something to me. Like the meaning is always there. But I guess the problem, as I understand from your discussion with Osman, is more about, do we find the fulfillment with these transient meanings, or with these pseudo explanations? Do we find fulfillment? Do we feel in peace? As Osman was saying, is there any conflict or contradiction in our experiences versus what we desire or what we feel or guess what the truth is? Because I think we have at least a prior or initial understanding of how it should be. We have this initial understanding about the things, at least for our life. In the worst case, we know that it shouldn't be like this. Like it shouldn't be end abruptly, like out of sudden. Like you are 30 years old and you die out of heart attack. We know that it shouldn't be like this. There is something wrong with this. Even when you are 90 years old, after living 90 years, after leaving it behind you, just dying, there is something wrong with this. Why you wasted 90 years then? Why you had to spend 90 years on that earth?
Just for dying.
Just for dying. Like every passing day takes us closer to death, and we don't want to die. So there is a absurdity
like,
there.
Yeah, in plain language, everything that we do, like for example, writing a paper and being really successful, would really make sense to me if there was no death. Because why not? Like you are like working for one of the best institutions and you want to be the top in the field so other people can admire you, and like you like to be admired, and there is no death and you will continue like experiencing that, then that I would be perfectly fine with that. But as soon as that comes into the equation, I'm like, so what? Like, it completely changes everything.
Yes, it does.
So as for your comment about meaning, since I am totally on the other side of the fence, again going with this.
But hold on, we have to like draw the lines. You're which side of the fence? Like you're on our side or his side?
You will see.
Or yes, you are on your own side.
You will see it in a second. So let's say when you are a newbie, a new PhD student, and you are trying to publish a paper. No matter where this paper goes, your point is just to get it published. So when you receive the email saying that it got accepted, it means a lot for you. But once you start publishing, and maybe in more important places, the next paper is going to mean less. Mean in the sense that it doesn't have as a high value for you as the first one. And in your career, just look at those people which has 500 publications, whatever, in their CV. 501 is not meaning anything for them. So just the return or the value diminishes as the time progresses. And I guess once the death comes, whatever you have done becomes zero in this sense, because now you are really at this position that he's describing. You would like to get something that you're going to give you the satisfaction. Now, life, the only thing that apparently you have is being taken away from you. And you would like to rely on something which is going to satisfy you. And none of them right now makes any sense because they are of no use. So, of course, when we say phone has a meaning, this is why I'm holding it in my hand. By dictionary definition, yes. But relatively speaking, when there's death, there's nothing that makes sense or has any value or meaning, value, just abuse of words, if you like.
So that's the point.
Yeah.
I guess I'm having difficulty. It's about the choice of word. Otherwise, I'm not against what you are describing. Yeah, I agree, totally agree. The only part I'm, I guess, objecting is the use of word meaning. Because it has different senses. And most of the time, as Emin was asking, I guess that was the reason he asked, it's not clear in what sense we are using the word meaning. Because regardless of believer or unbeliever, or regardless of what you believe in, you don't find the life as purely chaotic. But you can make sense of things, you can locate yourself. Whether it is 15 publication or 500 publication, you know what it means. You know what a publication is, you know how many other publications you published, and so on. So in its dictionary meaning and maybe more common use, when we say that life doesn't have, or life become meaningless, I guess it's hard to
Communicate.
yes, communicate.
Yes. Thus, rather than receiving consolation and a feeling of familiarity, I felt only horror and fear at these 6 aspects. And apart from the faculty of will, I had nothing in my hand with which to withstand them and act in the face of them. Belief gives a document for relying on an infinite power in place of the power of choice. In place of the power of choice, which is like the smallest indivisible particle. Indeed, belief itself is a document.
So before starting discussion at this point, when he says which is like the smallest indivisible particle, I'm assuming which modifies the power of choice. It's like it's talking about the power of choice. Okay. The power of choice is like the smallest indivisible particle.
Very good description for free will.
Yeah. Would you elaborate a little bit? Yes, why is that?
So, when he talks about, in 26th word, when he talks about human free will, so his initial point in there is, for example, as you understand about, let's say, causality, or you understand your weakness, you realize that I don't own my body. I'm getting old and I'm not able to control, let's say, my physical existence. So it doesn't belong to me. So you get rid of it. It's not mine. It's been provided by somebody else. Then you talk about your health, you talk about your intellect, you talk about your beauty, handsomeness, whatever. And all of them are being taken away from you. You realize that. But it comes to a point that you say, my choices, or this very tiny thing in you, which it is really hard to say that it doesn't belong to me. It is me, because whenever I start thinking in myself, I start using the word I, or there's this sense of choice or my existence. It's really hard to get rid of that. And I don't know if it's possible to get rid of that. So this is why it is indivisible particle. It is meaning that you get rid of everything else by halving up to here. Still, I think I can control, but no, I cannot control aging, for example. So you get rid of all the things that you think you cannot control, but it comes to a point which you cannot split any further. It is the very core which defines you. If you get rid of that, there is no you left. So this part he says as my free will, which is this indivisible particle.
His use of this indivisible smallest particle, it's also reminded me an interesting fact that when we talk about the indivisible particles, like atoms or subatomic particles, we also refer them as building material.
Building blocks.
Building blocks, yes, building blocks of the life or everything we observe. So in the same way, maybe we can take it, maybe we can take this power of choice or will in the same way and say that all our experiences, the way we perceive the life in its entirety is built upon or by our choices. Like all our choices come together, and this is what we experience, this is what we perceive. So by
whose choices?
Our choices, at least the way we perceive the life. Like when I change my choice, entire perception will change. Like entire life will change to me, for me. When I say choice, I mean, of course it will go to belief. The way I look at the reality, am I seeing it as being like as being outcome of a random process or being a purposeful creation, I guess this choice will change my entire perception. So entire reality will be built on this choice.
How is that related with the building block?
I'm building my reality out of my choice. Maybe it doesn't make sense. Maybe I should think more.
No, I just didn't see the relation between the two.
Let me think more. Okay. Because I also realized that I was not clear, and at least clear to myself.
So what does he mean by saying that belief gives? Well, maybe he's going to explain it in the following paragraphs. It's understandable that for human, we think that the only weapon that I have in my hands is my free will, my choices. This is the only impact that I can make, apparently. But he says, belief gives a document for relying on an infinite power in place of the power of choice. Now we are not relying on the power of choice. Instead, we rely on something else. It's not like rely on power of choice and rely on something else. Well, he's saying we need to replace it somehow. I shouldn't be relying on my power of choice. Instead, I should be relying on, or belief gives me a document for relying on an infinite power.
So what's your question?
So what is this power that I'm going to rely on? Am I going to get rid of my free will?
So is he saying that you should get rid of your free will? Or is he saying you shouldn't rely on it? There's a difference, right? Because as you were saying before, I don't think there's a way of getting rid of your free will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need to get rid of your free will.
Discussion that in
What do you mean?
But like,
continue.
Let's make it more like exciting. Why do you always try to get rid of your free will? Because you like, there is something in your subconscious. Now I'm attacking you so you can come back, more heated way.
Okay.
It seems like there is something like that you set your mind already up on that, like, or that's in your subconscious already. Anytime, not necessarily just for this discussion. Anytime when we have the discussion, like, about the free will or somehow like that comes into the discussion, you always use that phrase, that trying to get rid of the free will.
Mm-hmm.
What's your problem with your free will?
One of our friends, he came to me in the morning saying that, Bika, can I ask you something? I thought it was about the work. I said, yes. And he said, well, it's not about the work. I have a problem with my free will.
That was him?
No, not Yusuf. I said, okay, go ahead. This is interesting. He said, if there's a infinite power out there, why he doesn't make me follow the right path? Why I have to choose the path? Like, it's so hard for me to follow it or to choose it. I don't want to choose it.
He's lazy.
I don't know how to describe it, but he used the exact phrase that I want to get rid of my free will. I don't like it. So that's interesting. Maybe you do have a solution for him to say about it, like a free will.
No, I deferred there, like with Yusuf. I don't think free will is something that needs to be get rid of or gotten rid of. Whatever the right English is.
The interesting part about the text, however, I guess when he describes the human condition, it really sounds like that your free will doesn't have any utility at all. Like
In
whatever,
this text?
yeah, whatever you try to do, you will not find any solution. At least up to this point, it says wherever you look, you will not find any solution. It will be always a death. It will end up with that. So I guess it is easy to understand why we have a problem with our free will, because
It's useless anyway.
it's useless. It seems like useless. Like I am given a choice, the power of choice, but I cannot control anything. Even if I choose A or B, I don't know what will happen as an outcome. Like it's out of my control. I don't have any power on
I
anything.
think that's where we are confusing, but like, based on my own reflections, this conclusion that I have come to about the free will, it is not like, when it comes to like, for example, that not changing, not being subject to change, all that existential stuff, yeah, it is nothing. It really means nothing at all. Like you cannot control anything, you cannot do anything about it. But at the same time, there is this like phenomenon that we experience and we practice. So how, like, it seems like a contradiction. So in the, like bringing something into existence, like in terms of the things or the events, you definitely have no control over. So no matter what, like what you go through in life, no matter what, you will go through those things. You cannot change those. You cannot change the course of the history in a way. But that's why I think there is always emphasis on the belief. There is this aspect that you are completely free how you want to interpret the event.
So what I understand here is, maybe interrupting you, but what I mean by getting rid of free will is, because he's going to use a similar word, he says forego your free will. So my perception of free will needs to change. And pretty much like I cannot get rid of my life, for example, unless I drink bleach, which means, getting rid of everything sort of, which we do not know what will happen afterwards. But practically, my perception of life can change though. I might be thinking that I am the owner of my life, so I can change that. I can get rid of my life, meaning that I can get rid of my claim of ownership over my life. Same thing I think goes with free will. My perception of my free will is somewhat like, at least I have something in my hands, and with this I can control something at least to some extent. This perception is the thing that needs to be gotten rid of. This is what I understand in here. So the perception, my perception about my free will is the thing that's going to change.
Like, yeah,
and this is what he's talking all about in this part.
I really still do not know why you insist on getting rid of something, because to me it doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
For the reason,
because you don't want to get rid of it. Okay, I understand.
When you try to control the things, coming to the conclusion that you have no control over is technically your realization of your true nature, facing with your reality. Okay, this is who you are. As far as like bringing something into the, existence, you're absolutely nothing. That's your essence in a way. So that understanding is one thing, but when it comes to perception, you said, when it comes to trying to make sense or understand or like how you want to perceive the things, you are completely free, and there, like, you don't need to get rid of it. You need to utilize the free will in a way that you are responsible for it. So I just don't know why you want to use that phrase, because getting rid of is not, it seems like it is pious, but in reality, to me, or at least the connotation, like in my world.
Now this boils down to our use of, the the argument that we just have with Birkan, the meaning that we load on meaning, which he was opposing, saying going to the dictionary meaning. Now we are going to the dictionary meaning of free will.
What do you mean? Going to the
So getting rid of free will, you are saying that how can you do that? By definition, it's not possible because you are utilizing your free will to get rid of your free will. For sure, I am not using this dictionary meaning of free will when I say I get rid of free will. So do not boil it down to the dictionary meaning because the author himself is using getting rid of. That's why I'm using the getting rid of word here. So getting rid of in this sense is
where he says getting rid of.
So he uses forgo in the translation, but in Turkish he says vazgeçmek, teberri etmek. I'm just saying that it get away from me, sort of. So what does that mean? Same thing applies to human ego as well. And the author talks about that in the part of human ego. You cannot get rid of your ego, but you can get rid of your egotistical claims, which are, again, because in here he is going to say that, again, in Turkish, enaniyetinden teberri ediyorum.
But like that, to me, like submitting, like in the first one, you understand, like you have you come to the understanding that you have no control over it. And when it comes to getting rid of something, there, like, what I understand is like understanding that he is the one who is in full control and submitting to that reality. That's it. That's where it ends.
Yes. Because
so like
point,
the second one is submission. The first one is belief. The second one, never, if you want to categorize it that way, the first one is belief and the second one is submission. And that's at the end of the discussion. Still, like, you practice your free will, in front of the giver of the free will. You still didn't get rid of it. Like, I don't know even like why Nurse is using it that way, but that's the way I understand.
I think you need to read more, brothers.
But like, from the chair, like I moved here so I can be in the opposite camp with Birkan, so we can argue. But like, I don't know, you're sitting right next to him. I don't know why we are having an argument.
Go ahead, Emin, please.
I think it helps if we consider free will in the same category as, let's say, another apparent cause. Let's say apple tree makes an apple. So my understanding of Nurse's point here and the other point about teberri etmek is we are just deciding to whom we are going to ascribe the source of existence. So in this sense, free will is not in some unique box. It's in the same box as an apple tree. And the point is, free will itself does not have a power to bring things into existence. So when I approach to the concept of free will from this point of view, it really makes things much simpler for me and easier to comprehend. So again, from my understanding, the point is the free will itself is created or is given to me or to every one of us, similar to the quality of producing an apple is also given. It's not created by the tree itself. In simple layman terms, that's how I approach to this topic.
Do you mean then when somebody says, let's say Yusuf, when he says getting rid of the free will, you mean getting rid of the ownership of the free will, or stopping attributing any power to your free will?
Yes, that's how I understand, and I wouldn't use get rid of at all. But if you really have to use that word for whatever reason, your definition or your explanation of that word makes sense to me. If you want to use that word in that context, then yes. But I personally wouldn't use that word because it makes things a little bit more difficult for me. It adds additional layer of abstraction, makes it difficult to comprehend for me. But yeah, exactly.
So when I look at my own choices, I guess it's not that hard to see why people trying to get rid of their free will. Because almost every day we face difficult problems and difficult choices we have to make, like almost every day. And with some of them, our life changes entirely. At least that's how we perceive, how we see it. Like, should I get married with this girl or that one? Should I live here or there? Like, am I going to accept this job or that job? All these choices, at least, again, at the surface level, changes our future in a dramatic way. And what we experience, what we see, that our choices only makes things worse. It's always that I complain about my past choices. There's always a regret. Like, I always feel like I missed something by making this choice. So making choices, or this power of choice, most of the time brings us sadness or a feeling of loss. Or in another aspect, most of the times we feel the pressure to make a choice, but we don't even know which choice is better for us. And again, most of the time, we feel that we don't have any option or any way to know which choice is better for us. It's like a complete darkness when it comes to outcome of our choice, but still we have to make the choice. Life wouldn't, again, I'm using secular language on purpose because this is our initial state most of the time.
Is that the reason why you think Yusuf wants to get rid of the church?
No. Again, I'm just talking about my friend.
But that imaginary friend.
No, not imaginary, he's a real one. Almost every choice we make brings complications to our lives. So at least to me, so it's not hard when I look at myself, when I remember my past, the choices I made. It's not really hard to see the sentiment they're feeling, like why people trying to, quote unquote, getting rid of their free will.
Mm-hmm. And in the text, when he says, instead of this free will, relying on an infinite power. For example, in this friend's case, what would you offer him as a solution in the light of this text, for instance?
What I would offer?
Yeah. Or what does the author offer as a solution to your friend?
I mean, go ahead, please.
Can I make an offer to that friend of yours? My offer would be to realize or aware of your createdness in the shortest sentence possible. That's my understanding or my take of the emphasis the author is making through that statement. Realize that you are created and your existence is contingent to another source.
So just to extend this, simplifying it. So shall he get married with Andrea or, I don't know, Nancy? Would be your suggestion.
Get married with both.
Well, yeah, there you go. So if you start giving practical examples, things get hairy.
Maybe you didn't like the answer.
So, but this is, I mean, there is a practical problem, and the author started with a practical problem. And simply saying that, well, realize your truth, the truth is inside us, whatever. I mean, it sounds good, but it doesn't solve the problem. I mean, bleach is a better solution, if you ask me.
But it's, I mean, yeah, I don't want to run away from the question itself, but really, there's no magic recipe or magic instruction. Otherwise, why are we spending 2 hours discussing this topic? So my true, sincere, genuine offer for that friend of yours is to come join our discussions. So what I mean by that is, in order to really make a practical position or make a pragmatic decision at this level, he or she needs to have climbed the ladder of these, looking all different directions and not being able to find any substantial solution to their problems. I looked at above, I looked at the bottom, my left and right. So my very practical offer or suggestions to him or her is to question your own existence. I know this is very cliche, but I from my heart, I believe this is the beginning of that practical journey. Without questioning your own existence and coming to the same conclusion or similar conclusion the author has come to at this level, there is no other way. We cannot just start writing recipes like doctors. And at the end, once that friend of yours has come to a certain realization per his or her capacity, then they are going to be able to start making practical decisions, obviously with the help of the community and etc. So those are separate discussions, but it's going to have to come from within. Yeah. But yeah, for the real question, Nancy or Michelle, yeah, that's a tough one to answer.
But still, I mean, you see, the problem is there, even if it is not this imaginary friend. If I am asking a question in a different setup, first of all, joining these discussions for however many years, do I have an answer to this question? Because when I say getting rid of free will, for example, Brother Osman just says you cannot do that, which we are doing these discussions for 6-7 years. So we are not agreeing on that. So I don't know how good it is going to be for our newcomer friend joining us for another 7 years. And then at the end of the 7 years, still we are not going to be finding an answer to ourselves.
But why do you guys feel like obliged to provide an answer?
Because this man is seeking for an answer, and apparently he provided an answer which doesn't make sense to us. This is why I guess we are trying to find an answer.
Who provided the answer?
Mercy. So apparently he says that forego your free will, which you guys say we shouldn't, which I say we should, but neither you know how not to get rid of it, nor I know how to get rid of it.
No, I am not saying we should or we shouldn't. I am just saying that like the terms that we are using, just let's understand each other to make sure that we all mean the same thing. That's what I'm saying. Then after that, like we can say whether we should or we should not.
So if you really want to go technical for that part, the part about foregoing your free will, it's a part, I don't know if you read already, probably it's in the upcoming paragraphs you're referring to, right? In the future?
Yes.
Couple pages, yeah. So this is the same subject. Foregoing is, if you read the second half of that same sentence you're referring to, it's about the source of power, kuvvet.
Could you read it for us, please?
In Turkish?
No, the English one.
I don't know which. I was thinking of the Turkish one because let me see. Maybe I can find it.
Because since we're referring.
Yeah, we made so many reference. Okay, the solution is this: to forego one's own will and leave matters to the divine will, to give up one's own power and strength. So Nursi himself is defining what does forego mean here. And to my understanding, forego means, like I was trying to allude to earlier, giving up one's own power and strength. In other words, realize that this power, the source of power, cannot be you, cannot be anything in this world. It has to be coming from an absolute source. I guess that's kind of clear to me. I'm not saying it's clear to everyone, but forego clearly to me does not mean foregoing on free will. It means make a conscious decision, utilize your free will to realize that the power does not stem from your free will, if it makes sense.
In the case of this friend getting married, let's say, let this be a person who is joining the discussion for 10 years and he's still trying to make this choice. So forget about this person being simple-minded, whatever, and not being a part of discussions. So this person is going to make this decision. So shall I get married with X or Y? So what would be getting rid of power? I mean, if it's not real, getting rid of power, or I mean, however you would like to call it in this setup.
I think it will be the underlying motivation in your decision. I want to get married with X because I want to experience such and such, and I am the one who picks the best candidate. So that's the underlying subconscious motivation when you are making a decision between X and Y. And according to the text, the right way to approach this, or in the way that from the belief perspective, how you would approach this decision making is realize that you are given an option to choose from another, but you have no control over what will come next, and you are not in the position to demand everything your nafs desires. You can request, or you can think about those, potential experiences or good relationship with your future wife, but always be in the presence of your maker. In other words, always remember that you are just asking, you are putting in your prayer, and it's given to you. It may or may not be given to you. So don't take any credit for your decisions or the results that may appear to be coming right after your decisions, in the very close proximity of your decision. So I think it transforms your entire approach to that decision-making process. I am, in one side of the fence, you are making a decision of marriage due to your own selfish reasons, because you think you are in control of your life, and you are not really aware of the manifestations of the names of your creator. In the other selection, you might select the same person. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is, in the other side of the fence, when you are making a decision, you are choosing one person to get married in the name of God, bi-ismi Allah. So it's completely different from that point of view. But if if you point a camera towards that person physically, he's going to make a choice. You cannot tell by just watching that video if he made a choice foregoing his free will or worshiping his free will. It's obviously something related to our human qualities, and it's something within ourselves. So it's not measurable. But we can obviously talk about it, as we are trying to do right now, and find a common ground, understand each other. That's why I said earlier, even 10 years, 20 years, the only way to really get our understandings closer and closer to the truth, we have to keep thinking and reflecting and discussing about these matters. There's no end.
I think we are discussing this free will subject in really not in wrong context. In this context, like whether you choose choose Nancy versus Michelle or Adam versus Harun. That's not really the point here. Whether you choose Harun or Michelle, in either case, whatever the outcome of that event is going to be, what are you going to do with that? That's the question. Whether emotionally you perceive that outcome to be the worst experience or the best experience, still, what are you going to do with it?
What I understood from what Emin said, which I really like, not only he used some Arabic phrases to make it more convincing, but I really liked it. So I guess with such practical questions, foregoing free will would mean, I'm also guessing this what Yusuf had in mind at the beginning, is realizing that your life will not change by your choice. You either choose path A or B, does not cause anything in your life. It doesn't have a creative force. So it's not your choices or it's not your desires making change in your life. So I guess when you get rid of this fact that, okay, I will go and work this company and I will become rich and happy, or I will go work and for that company, I will earn less money and become less happy. That's the way we look usually. And we try to find the best company to work, right? Why we try to do that? Because we think that through our choice, choosing the right company, we will shape our future.
That will make a difference in your life.
Exactly. And I think Emin was trying to say, and again, probably was what Yusuf was trying to say by getting rid of the free will, is getting rid of the claim that your choice will shape your future. So I think this is getting rid of your free will, that not attributing any creative power or any strength to your free will. Because if you can get rid of this misconception that it's my choice which shape my future, or whatever I do will determine my, let's say, happiness. If you can get rid of this delusion, then everything becomes much easier. It becomes, let's say, more enjoyable. So it's not me shaping my future, but it's the divine power, whatever it means, shaping my future. So you're not attributing any, again I will repeat, you're not attributing any creative power to your free will. You are foregoing your free will.
So then, instead of thinking of my free will as an agent which creates or has a share in creation, at least initiates creation. So get rid of such or foregoing whatever, this sort of a perspective. If I take it as this is my way of requesting something in the future. Let's say by getting married with X versus Y, I am asking from my Lord for such and such. I don't know what's going to come out. This is my expectation. This is why I am making this choice. Because what I know is why I am making this choice. But the rest is totally unknown for me. What's going to happen in the future is totally unknown for me. The only thing I know is with what intention I am making this choice, which becomes practically my supplication, my asking from my Creator. Then the way that I load meaning to my free will totally changes. It just becomes a way to supplicate.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So exactly, I think the free will or decision making is all about the moment. And Osman just a couple minutes ago put it very beautifully. He didn't use any GRE word, but I think that's in my mind the very good summary of this discussion. When you make a decision, what are you going to do with it? So very simple question, but I think that summarizes the perspective that we should approach to this problem. What are you going to do with it? You chose one over another, or you did this or that. What exactly are you doing with that moment? So choice is about free will. I'm sorry, the free will is about the choice of the in the moment. And it's all about your perception, your feelings, emotions, reflective thoughts, etc., and realizing that you are in the presence of your maker, etc., etc. All these different, a collection of answers or responses to our human predicament, human problems. We can eliminate all of these problems in the moment with our choice. And the choice is, like you all said beautifully, it's the giving up your own, these empty claims that you are the ones that's shaping your future. You are the one that's creating your life, etc., etc. Once you give up on these empty claims, then you are going to start experiencing the true nature of peace, and the beautiful word before the Maghrib prayer, Birkan said, the tranquility. And everything is going, that's how belief perspective transform your worldview drastically. It's a whole different paradigm right now. And it's not about choosing X or Y, like Osman said, it's about what are you doing with your choice and how are you utilizing it? How are you approaching to that moment? What are you understanding from that moment? And how does it help support your human journey in this life?
I want to emphasize and underline one more time the statement, belief gives a document for relying on an infinite power in place of the power of choice, which is like the smallest indivisible particle. Indeed, belief itself is a document. So that will be repetition. Free will must be discussed within this context, the context of the statement, which means man's free will is absolutely free when it comes to the decision between belief and unbelief. This is the context where, as far as I understand, this is the context where we should try to understand what it really means to practice the free will and what it really means to let it go. When it comes to the practical examples that you guys talked about, I think talking about those examples we would have a better understanding of each other if we all can come to the same page, understanding the free will within this context. That's going to be my last word because it's 9 o'clock. Just one more thing, actually. Like, I think when you take it for the practical examples, like Aisha versus Sibel, there where this discussion of Mu'tazila and Jabriya comes into play, I think it's because even though like you think that you choose Sibel, but for example, Jabriya's position is that you think that you are choosing the Sibel, but all the rest of the things around you designed in a way that you had to make that choice. You had no other option. That is where that like Jabriya and Mu'tazila discussion boils down to. That's why I don't think it's the right context to talk about this.
It seems like we all kind of, to some extent, agree that we shouldn't attribute any creative power to our free will. It is there for some other reasons. We are only, or as Asman said, we are only free to choose belief versus unbelief. I guess the natural question would be, then what is the utility of free will? What it is that we are given free will? Like, what is the purpose? Not the purpose, but at least from our perspective, what is the wisdom that we see when we try to utilize and fail our free will? What is our get from that? And that's a big question. I guess we can continue discussing next week, inshallah. And if there are no other comments or questions, let's close the discussion for this week.
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين